Hello, everyone. Welcome, 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 welcome. Hey, hey, Power Up people. Look at y'all representing. Hi, welcome. Hello, Stanley. Welcome. Hello, Jake Anastala. Welcome. How is everyone today? We're going to let the crowd roll in. Stanley, I see your request. I'm waiting for the ladies to roll in. And then we're going to introduce everyone. Oh, I see B Speaks. And then once we introduce everyone and how the platform's going to go, then we'll get started. So excited to see y'all. I'm pulling you in, B Speaks. Hey girl, hey girl, hey.
Hello.
How are you?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I'm good. You look wonderful.
Thank you. You
I
too.
like the bangs.
Thanks. Try to look something a little different.
I like it. I like it. I like it.
Thank you.
We're going to wait for each to join us, and then our first speaker is going to be Stanley. He's running for the Senate seat, so we're going to see what it's all about.
Perfect.
Let's see. There she is. There we go. All right, all right, all right. Hey, ladies. Hey.
Hi.
The Blactrospective ladies are here. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Today is a really special episode. As you guys know, or probably maybe don't know, I believe it was last year we did an episode on voting, and we got to interview two individuals. One was Wanda Wallace with Florida Rising, and the other individual was Trish Brown with Power Up People. And in theme of this year, because it's a little crazy, we wanted to make sure that people knew who was running for office, who is running for office in August. I don't know about y'all, but when I first started voting, there wasn't like a class that was like, you vote for this individual, and this is why, and this is how you do your research, and these are the questions that you need to ask. It was kind of like, hey, you're 18, go and vote. Our family had always been religiously Democrat, so it was like, go vote for a Democrat. But it's more than that, because just because you're voting for someone that's in your party doesn't necessarily mean that they're advocating for you. So we wanted to do a candidate review. We're starting off hot because we have Mr. Stanley Campbell, but we also have two special ladies, Alicia Payton and LaShawnda Jackson. I'm sorry, LaShawnda Jackson, that'll be joining us tonight. So without further ado, I'm going to open up the floor with Stanley. Welcome, Sebastian. Thank you for joining us. Let's see. Hello, Stanley. How are you?
I am doing absolutely great. How are you?
Good. You're looking sharp today, sir.
Well, I'm going to the when I leave you guys, I'm going over to the Democratic Caucus meeting in Orlando, Florida.
Oh, nice. Okay, so you're coming to mine in each neck of the woods, and kind of like former B speaks because she used to live here too.
Oh wow! There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank you for
I
doing that.
I'm glad to be here tonight for sure.
Awesome. Okay, so for those of you who are already here, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So can you tell us, because I know that we hear a lot of titles, like we hear senators, we hear property appraisers, which I feel like is the most easiest one to know, right? But we hear all of these roles that are being called out, but people don't actually always know what these roles control, like what they have power over and what they don't. So can you kind of explain to the audience, like what is the Senate seat about? Like what is the role of that title?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, just to give you, I'll start with the borders for where I represent. So if you start in Jacksonville, go over to Pensacola, and then go all the way down to Key West and everything in between, that's where I represent. So that means that every single person in the state of Florida can actually vote for me. So now what the Senate does, it is sometimes termed the most exclusive club in the world because it's 100 people, and those 100 people get to make a lot of serious decisions. Like they take they that they the war, the Senate can declare war. The Senate can actually that's how we get our judges in place, and how we actually remove judges, even though we've not seen a judge. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, now we can.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. And so the things, it is also the oversight body, that actually works as an oversight to the other parts of the government, obviously the three segments of the government. But for the United States Senate, just think of it as also a financial environment to where we, when you're making laws, you also are cutting deals. And when you're cutting deals, that's how you bring those opportunities to the state of Florida. And when we look at the U.S. Senate, just think of, I'll just give you a few things that are on the table right now. Transportation. We had our current senator turned down $2 billion for rail transportation from Tampa to Orlando. That was like turning down 11,000 jobs. Plus, anybody on that route could work in either city. When we look at healthcare, when he was governor, he actually did turn down the Medicare Advantage program. And so, as a senator, he can actually vote to enhance the Affordable Care Act. But he didn't do either of those. He put 750,000 people off of Medicaid, and then he obviously didn't vote to extend Medicare, the Affordable Care Act. But my wife is the Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services, so she actually was able to do some things in extending the Affordable Care Act. Those are the kinds of things that when we look at the Senate, think of it as a place that is the top place for the state. It is next to the governor. It is the senior most administrative person in the state of Florida. Today we have two senators. One is Rick Scott, and the other one is Marco Rubio. And what I'm running for is to replace Rick Scott because he hasn't done what I think is the right things for the state of Florida.
Thank you, sir. Oh man, so essentially the senator is the voice of the people after the governor.
he is the voice of the people outside of the state. The governor would be the voice of the people inside of the state.
Okay. Okay.
The-
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So what motivated you personally to run for office?
so I came back to the state of Florida because my brother called me. My brother is Luther Campbell, the same Two Live Crew guy that many of you might know, and maybe you don't know him. But in any case, he called me up and he said, "Hey, in Opelika, we have a 4.5% vaccination rate, and in Aventura, we have an 84% vaccination rate." And I'm like, I can't believe that. There's only 3.5 miles difference between the two. And then he sent me this Miami Herald article, and it was very troubling to me. What it showed was that the accuracy of what he was saying, but it also showed that 21% of the vaccines have been given to publics. And if you kind of live where I was raised from, or any place else in the state of Florida that's like where I was raised from, there's no Publix in our neighborhood. And then Jackson Memorial Hospital, doing their vaccines, you had to have a Twitter account to register in. And now just think of how many people, elderly people, who were the first to that should have gotten vaccinated, that would have a Twitter account. So there was just so many of those things. I came in, put a system in place because I had actually been putting those systems in place across the country. Just one little bit of information. I have what is potentially the largest healthcare network in the United States. I message into every point in the United States and 5 of the 9 incorporated territories all at the same time. And what I do with that system, or what it was originally designed to do, is to stop Medicare and Medicaid fraud. But what I used it for through COVID was to be able to communicate and put people's names and information on the registry and then report that into the states because it's very competent in doing that. And so when I came here and I did that, then the governor decides to call my system a registry. And even though it was partly funded by the National Institute of Health, they tried to ban it, and then I just gave it away for free. And we then used that to get nurses and doctors and pharmacists to doing vaccinations. And then when we gave them refrigeration, then they were able to store the vaccine. So that means that they could actually ask for the vaccine. And I helped them with all of that. And then what you then saw was then the state of Florida then moved to being able to do that through the state, and then I didn't have to do that. But before I pivoted over to those people who the governor was putting on airplanes and sending them places, because those folks who are migrant farmers would not actually register in to get the vaccine because you had to give so much personal information. And if they were not legal, then they're just sitting there, or they're afraid of the governor. They're just sitting there with COVID. And so we wound up doing a lot. But the more I stayed here, the more I saw things like, well, we can't do Black history as an example. That's crazy. And then I looked at what was happening with healthcare. 750,000 people put off of Medicaid. And then what is happening with our insurance, our property insurance? Everybody's property insurance going up by 200 to 300%, and it's not going to change. I don't care what any political person says, they cannot change that because what our property tax is an indication that we do live in global warming, because when we have had the highest temperature rates in the last 10 years, ever since they've been able to record temperature, and the last year of all of those periods, then we know that we've got a global warming issue. And so when we look at how we are going to solve that, it has to be solved at the national level instead of by the state. And then we have to do that with a shared responsibility, because the state of Florida is not going to be able to sustain the insurance on property, and people who look like me, as an example, will definitely not be able to sustain their ownership of their housings. Even if they've got a military GI Bill and all the rest of that, it's one thing to have the GI Bill. It's a different thing to be able to afford the house that you can actually purchase. So I just got to the point. I went to my house in Miami. I stood in the backyard and I tried to imagine myself at 15 years old, imagine myself at 17 years old, and imagine if I could build me with everything that I know right now. And I couldn't see how I could do that, not with the way the system is set up now. And so I looked around. I looked around to see who could beat Rick Scott, and I could not find anybody who was running in the race right now. So I put myself into the race, and I do expect to win, and I expect to win soundly.
That sounds exactly how what Obama ran would be the change you want to see. So that's impressive.
Well, I point average that I had coming out of high school, and take that up to Florida A&M, you got to have like a 4.0 to get into school. And so I could sit on any college board in the state of Florida. I happen to sit on the board of Indian River State College. It's a junior college, and what we've raised more money in the last 2 years than every HBCU combined. And what we do with that money is we make absolutely sure that college students coming in to get their 2-year degree will leave the college with no debt, zero debt. And so, so that's how, if I was coming through right now, that's how I would have to get have to Florida A&M. I would have to go to a 2-year school before. And now recognizing it's not anything to do with my ability to stay there. Because I got 14 patents in artificial intelligence and never took a class outside of Florida A&M. When I got there, I wound up with like a 3.8 grade point average. But at the end of the day, being there, getting in there is the toughest thing. That's what the school used to be for, but now it's much harder because the standards are raised so high, and we cannot keep the school backwards waiting on me, but we have to also be able to take equity in. And when I say that, I mean diversity, equity, and inclusion. The governor allows diversity. He allows. I went to high school in Miami
Stanley,
Beach. That means I
Stanley,
basically had, yes.
I'm sorry to interrupt. You cut out. You said the governor allows, and then it cut off. Can you repeat that one more time
Yeah.
for us who didn't catch?
So we know DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the governor allows diversity. He can't stop that. That's the law. The governor allows inclusion, but they say they will not measure equity as a part of how you. They won't do that. And so for me, I took a walk for 30 minutes to get to a school, to get onto a bus, to ride an hour and 15 minutes, and then do that all the way back coming home. But at the same time, I'm doing, I have sports, and then I have a job, and all of that doesn't count. And so what ends up happening is we've got to be able to take the whole kid, and we look at everything that kid was up against. And then that becomes what we evaluate them on, how we get them in and how we prosecute them through college. But for me, I couldn't fight all of that. I just said, okay, I'm on the board of Indian River State College. We will build these kids, and we'll build them for life. If they want to take a trade, they can do that. If they want to go to college, they can do that. And once they get out of there, we can put them on pace to any state school, any place in the country. and then they got a good 2 year degree and they got a good head start.
Stanley, where were you when I was going to college?
I'm,
Okay.
well, I can tell you, you know, I sit on that board. I probably missed a board meeting or two over the last year, but I make it very on point that I'm at the school, because if they can't see it, they don't know that they can be it. And believe me, my wife and I are the only black folks in the history of the country to own three PGA country clubs. And we neither one of us are serious golfers, but we own them for the reason that says if we can make one Tiger Woods, we can make 100 Tiger Woods, and then we can make 1,000 Tiger Woods. All we have to do is have access, and that's what we're doing. We're providing them the access. And with that being said, I'm telling you, they're going to do extremely well, because we. Oh, and by the way, this week we have our first. This next week we have our first college graduate that we've been training. He's actually got as our club. He's got the coach from Tiger Woods from 14 to 19, and he's going to play at the Wyndham. And we don't know if he's going to make it in, so we don't know if we're going. But at the end of the day, he is going to have the the best caddy on the whole field, because he's got Tiger Woods as former coach. But he's also going to be playing against the best players in the world, and then he'll know how big a stud he is. And by the way, take us out of the equation. There's absolutely no way he's playing that on that field. Um, after getting out of college.
Love opening up opportunities in our community for activities that are not like culturally sound for us.
Oh, no question. That is absolutely no question. What we're doing also is we have a young person's program. You can start there at 4 or 5 years old golfing, and though it's a black owned course, it's not a black course. So you can be white, green, Spanish, black. It doesn't matter, because what we've done is we've made a situation where the accessibility is the thing that gets us the exposure. And I can tell you, those are the things that you do when nobody's looking. And now that I'm running for the United States Senate, it becomes important. But it wasn't important then, to anybody other than, my wife and I. And so what we're doing and what we're trying to do is to make absolutely sure that that kids who look like us, who look like me, will have access to play at one of the top courses in the history of the state of Florida. And by the way, we just also bought the course at Gainesville. So give it a year and we'll be playing at Gainesville as well.
That's awesome. So let me ask you,
Go
because you
ahead
kind
and.
of touched on DEA a little bit. So what would you suggest be done about more inclusion? Because you're right, they are changing the narrative of Black history and what it looks like. So what would be your suggestion as far as um, if you control that change, or how would you? I know that with the senator seat there has to be more than just one, right? It's a community effort. So how would you rally? What would you say in terms of trying to open the floor to reintroducing it to a more truer history and being more inclusive, not only Black history, Latin history, world history represented in those history books?
Well, I can tell you that, let's say from the equity and inclusion standpoint, um, I think people have spoken on what they think about DeSantis and what he's done with stacking the deck at the University of Florida, and stacking the deck at Florida State universities with people who don't think equity means anything. When you look at the Senate, you have a very good, diverse set of people. They're generally the more cerebral. And when you look at shared responsibilities, meaning everybody that wasn't born with the silver spoon in their mouth, some of them actually worked their way up. But the key then becomes, as you work your way up, do you remember what you left behind you? And so for me, my cousins still live in the neighborhood, make it out because he did something in music. My other brother was able to make it out because my oldest brother, he got a PhD in psychology. He went to Miami Northwestern. My second oldest brother was able to make it out. He wound up running the largest chemical plant in the country, the Monsanto plant. And I was able to make it out because I went into the Navy and fly airplanes. Now my brother under him made it out because he was a great chef and he beat Emerald twice on Miami Beach. So the issue becomes, do we look at the person for who they are and what they are in their entirety? And if they don't look at us that way, here's the big magical thing. If they don't look at us at that way, then who cares? If I know in my head and in my heart who I am, then nobody and nothing is going to stop me. Well, I'm running for the United States Senate because I have equity, because I've worked all over the world. About 15 times I've traveled the world. And I didn't just travel coming through and getting in a seat. I traveled putting a flight plan in place and taking that big airplane and taking it around the world and then bringing it back and having done that every single time successfully and safely. Because if I land 1 inch short of the runway, they call it a crash. And so when you've seen the world that way and you presented yourself, that is equity. And so I just know that there's nothing. Now, how do I get you there and how do I get the next kid coming out of Liberty City or coming out of Hillsborough County or coming out of Orange County or coming out of Leon County or Escambia County or any of the 67 counties? How do we get that stand that they too are worthy, that they too can work hard and become successful? We just have to show them every day. We have to expose them every chance we get. And we cannot ever let them feel like they've been limited because of who their parents are, where they were born, or what they brought to the table. Because it ain't about how you start. If it was about how you start, I would still be on the third ladder trying to get out of Liberty City alive, because I lived in the highest crime district in the United States. But the key is if they can see it, they can know that they can be it, and that's the bottom line. If they can see it, they can be it.
I truly believe in that. Thank you so much, Stanley. I want to at least open the floor. We have two more speakers, but I want to open up the floor for questions for people who want to specifically ask Stanley Campbell any questions. So do we have any audience questions?
Everybody's shy
Don't
and
be shy. We want
reserved. It's like I never talked to the senator before.
Let me see. No, I don't see any questions yet. Maybe you answered all the questions.
I
Is that
didn't
what
answer
is that
all
what
of
the
their
viewing
questions.
audience?
They don't know how they're gonna get lower insurance. They don't know how they're gonna get health care. They have no idea what I think about a woman's right to choose. They don't
Ooh,
they, they don't
why
they
don't you
don't know
tell
any of
them?
that.
Look
Huh?
at you. You came up with all the talking points.
Well, I can tell you that they're talking points because that's why I'm running. I have this large network. I have 5 medical doctors on staff. and my chief medical officer is an OBGYN oncologist. Her name is Dr. Cynthia Macri, but she's also former Captain Cynthia Macri from the United States Navy. Now, I can tell you my wife had an abortion. My wife was pregnant with twins, and one of the twins was atopic. And I can tell you she had a 10% chance of keeping the one child, but it was a 100% chance that she would have died, and both children would have died had she not had that abortion. If she was with the same instance here in the state of Florida today, she would die because of the other complications. She happened to be in a state where they could do that surgery based on the decisions that we made immediately. Immediately. She got to the hospital in an ambulance. It's not something that I brought. And it was an emergency because the baby had ruptured her tube. So those are the kinds of things that make you know that we're in this for real life. We can talk a bunch of games and decide whether we're going to vote, or maybe I'll miss the primary. Or let me tell you, Reverend Jackson used to say, your vote is your rod. And if you drop your rod, it will turn into a snake and bite you. And what we've got to do is we got to take this whole thing very serious. And then I'll end with how we're going to get your insurances down. Because I talk very, very poorly about both sides of the government and their inability to do that because we can't. Because we have this tax that is imposed upon us based on insurance. I mean, based on the weather. But what we can do is we can know that we have the same problem on our Western Shore, as an example, as Mississippi, as Alabama, as Louisiana, as Texas. All of us share that responsibility. So if we can share the responsibility, we should be able to share in the results. Meaning if Texas just got hit and we were missed, then there should be some shared responsibility. But California has fires. Iowa just had floods. And so the shared responsibility is no different than what we do with Medicare or Medicaid, where we all put in some money and then we all get that back on a shared basis. It's easier for this. And so I'm proposing that we put insurance in the critical infrastructure protection program. That is 14 elements, like your light bill as an example. And that 14 elements is actually basically put into place so that at the end of the day, that when Florida gets hit, we the first payer is the federal government. Now, what that would do in that shared responsibility across the country, it will lower our insurance rates by 30%. It'll lower Texas by about 29%, California about 30%, Iowa about 26%, and Mississippi about 22%. That's important because it's that shared responsibility that will get us to being able to afford the houses, and that stops that rate of increase on insurance, because that's going to basically take us all out of being able to live the American dream. Because our first investment and our first real worth becomes a part of our home ownership. So, ladies, I got the Orange County Democrats in there starting on time, and if I get in there, I'm going to be as absolutely excellent as I have been tonight. But I actually am going in there, and I'm going to make your case, and I'm going to make the case for why I need to be the next senator for the from the great state of Florida.
Well, thank you so much.
So if nobody has any questions, I'm going to have to sign off. But I thank you all for inviting me, for sure.
Thank you so much, Stanley. We actually do have questions, but we
Oh,
still have to roll up the other two ladies. We can ask one question, but you may have to sum it up to like 2 minutes. It's a
Okay,
challenge though.
I'll be less than 2 minutes. How's that?
Okay, all right. So let
Go
me
for
see.
it.
I think our people has a question, and it says, "Does your platform include the issues with living wages?"
Absolutely. So Rick's got turned down um, $2 billion from the Obama administration. They were going to build a rail system from Tampa to Orlando, meaning that's 11,000 jobs, and that's working trades. I won the endorsement of the AFL-CIO and the Black Caucus, but the AFL-CIO is important because that's working people. And when we all were evaluated, including the person that is the party person in this race that I'm up against, she's been endorsed by them 3 times. But that means that they've seen her work 3 times. For me, I'm a working person. My father was a labor union man. I remember the day we moved out of the apartment into a house with grass all the way around the yard. I am for working people because I know the issues. I know that if the police department that endorsed me, 14 police departments in Florida that endorsed me, I know that they represent about 2,200 people, but they really represent about 5,500 people. It is those others that don't come into the union. So I'm not going to make anybody come into the union, but I'm going to make the regulations so sincere to the union worker that they actually want to come into the union. It is a benefit to them. When we look at wages as an example, we should be at $16 to $18 an hour for minimum wage because minimum wage should not be less than livable wage. It just doesn't make sense. And so when we look at those kinds of things, I am for increasing the minimum wage. I'm for being able to get veterans, families, education because that veteran that Tommy Tuberville fought to get his promotion or her promotion, they've been in for 30 to 35 years and they're at the top of the food chain. But those guys who are E1, E2, E3, and they also have the same families. They also have to transfer 3 and 4 times in a career, maybe 5 times in a career. It is important that we get them educated too. And so these are the kinds of things that for labor, I understand what Davis Bacon is and how you cheat it because I've been cheated on Davis Bacon. I understand how labor unions have to fight because my father was a union worker. And I understand those things associated with jobs because if we don't make the right kind of jobs, we will suffer. And if we can't educate our people, we suffer. We got the third largest economy in the entire United States, but our teachers are paid 50th out of 50. That's absolutely crazy. So I really am thankful that you guys had me, and hopefully I got to answer a little part of the question, but
I,
I am so passionate.
Thank you, Stanley. There are so many questions that started rolling in for you. So is it okay if the audience, if you want to send your questions to Blactrospective, would it be okay if we forward those questions to you and we post it on our site what your answers are?
Absolutely, absolutely,
All right.
positively.
Thank you
Believe
so
me,
much.
I knew y'all had it in you. Well,
Thank you so much, Stanley. You have a good night. Represent for us out there, and we'll hopefully see you again. And good luck during
all
elections.
Yeah.
right. Well, thank you. Get out to vote. Go to stanley4florida.com.
And
Stanley4florida.com. Leave a little something there. Volunteer. Get the word out. But we gotta win this race because our democracy actually is on at risk. So thank you all.
Thank you.
thank you, Stanley.
All right.
All right, you all. So I see that we have Miss LaShawnda Jackson with us. Miss LaShawnda Jackson is running for Judicial Circuit Court. Gosh, if I can spit it all out. We're going to bring her in. I hope you all are enjoying the show so far. We're also gonna open the floor later on for questions for Miss LaShawnda Jackson and Miss Alicia Payton if she joins us as well. So feel free to garner up those questions now. So get ready. Hello, LaShawnda. How are you?
Hi, great. Thank you. How's everybody?
Good.
Oh,
Awesome.
Welcome to our show.
Thank you so much for having me. Very interesting conversation before.
Of course. You know, we want to be the voice of the people, and there's so many things that I didn't know, as I was saying earlier about elections, and I don't know how it is for the other girls, but I feel like platforms like this is important because there are people's lives that are impacted by the way that law is interpreted, the way that bills are passed, the way that the Constitution is understood. So we just want to make sure that people have an opportunity to ask their own personal questions.
Great.
So thank you for opening that up. So you are running for circuit judgeship. I know that most people know what the judge does, but if you could break down an explanation of something people don't normally know, what would you say is something that most people don't know about being a judge?
Probably, first of all, if I could just explain what a circuit judge versus a county court judge, because most people don't know that. A county court judge is a person who sits and they are a judge and they represent one county. So for example, here in Orange County, they would be a county court judge here. They would hear misdemeanor cases in criminal courts, meaning punishment less than a year in jail. They would also hear smaller valued claims that are less than $50,000 where people are suing with regard to money damages are some of the cases they will handle. A circuit court judge, we have several different circuits throughout the state of Florida, and they encompass more than one county mostly. In the Ninth Circuit, it would be Orange and Osceola County. So as a circuit court judge, the judge could hear different types of law, family law issues, adoptions, juvenile dependency issues, civil cases, people suing each other for money damages in excess of $50,000. And a wide range, probate, cases, those types of things. So that's something important that most people don't know. And then another thing that most people don't know is how you become a judge. For the most part, a judge's position is a 6-year term. And so if a judge retires or somehow loses their position within that 6-year term, the governor appoints people to serve as a judge. And it's a limited appointment. You serve for maybe a year and a half, 2 years, and then you have to seek election for a full 6-year term. Same thing with a judge who's elected. They come up for re-election every 6 years. So in this particular case, the seat I'm running for, which is Group 5 on the circuit court for the Ninth Circuit, we have a judge that's going to retire in January. So she's not running for re-election. So I'm running for a full 6-year term to serve as a circuit court judge. And the type of cases that I will handle is anything that I just described for you that a circuit court judge handles, but it will depend on whatever the chief judge assigns me. Usually the judges are assigned to a division, family law division, a criminal law division, a civil law division. So it could be a variety of different cases.
The judge that's going to be replaced, what are they currently covering at the moment?
The judge who's retiring is on the criminal bench, criminal docket. So she's hearing felony criminal cases.
okay. What motivated you to run for office in this position?
So when I grew up, I kind of grew up seeing the other side of the law. I grew up in the projects of East Mims, just down the way from Orlando. And when I was 3 years old, my father was murdered. My aunt got a temporary guardianship of me, but there was no formal adoption. There were no formal paperwork. There was no one that ever came to check on me to make sure that I was okay. Good thing I had a loving and caring family. And then I also had some older brothers who ended up with some other family members and eventually got into the foster care system. Even during the time growing up, we couldn't afford a lawyer, made a claim for my father's death benefits. We were denied. So I know what it's like to be on the other side of the law. And most people would be discouraged. They would probably say they don't like the law, they don't trust the legal system. But for me, it's a motivating factor. It makes me want to make the system better, makes me want to make sure that I'm in the courtroom looking out for the little girl who doesn't have anybody checking on her, for the person who can't afford a lawyer and they're in there on their own and they need navigation through the judicial system on how to proceed with their case. And so I think it's my life circumstances and the things that I've experienced in my life that kind of motivates me. One of the things that Mr. Campbell said earlier said sometimes you have to see it to believe that you can be it. I totally agree with that. When I was very young, I had a teacher's husband who introduced me to 3 Black female scientists. And I was so overwhelmed with them. And I knew then and there that I could be anything I wanted to be, whether it would be a teacher or now I can run for circuit court judge and make a difference in the community and the legal system.
To go back and piggyback off of something you said earlier, so because that seat is open and the judge who is now retiring was over that specific sector, will you automatically be into that same sector, or would that still be reassigned to you?
No. So again, it just depends on what the chief judge, every circuit has a chief judge, means it's the judge who's in charge. They administratively assign the dockets, assign the divisions where the judges go. And so I would be at the pretty much the chief judge, whatever she decided she would want me to go. My background is in civil litigation, with people suing people. I've represented individual people. I've represented small business owners. I've represented some of the major and largest companies in the world. But I know that I could go to criminal. I'm prepared to do that. I've transitioned. I've worked hard all of my career learning new things and learning new types of law. So again, I wouldn't know until the chief judge decides and tells me where I would go, but I am ready, willing, and able to do the work that she has assigned for me.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying.
LaShawnda, how do you approach the interpretation of like the constitutional statutes?
So for me, I have to look at the law and I have to apply the facts to the law. It's just basically that simple. We see a lot of times people, what is your judicial philosophy? What do you believe in? I don't like to label myself, and so I don't give myself a label, any type of particular philosophy. But what I am here to do is apply the law based on the facts. But I think what's important and what we want in a judge is a person who is going to apply the law and the facts to everybody, no matter what their gender is, no matter what their race is, no matter what their sexual orientation, how much money they have or don't have. And so for me, my goal and my job would be to be impartial and to be fair to all the litigants who come into my courtroom. And I'm going to look at the law as it's written, and I'm going to apply it to the facts that are before me. And that's how I would base my decisions.
Also, I noticed on your platform something that you were passionate about was the affordable housing crisis. You said that you on the website it says that you mentioned that you're doing some endeavors to better that sector. So what does that look like, and how will you continue to do that given your new role?
All right. So for me, one of the things I've volunteered a lot throughout my career. I've been practicing for 22 years here in Orlando, and most of my volunteer work is with children. Absolutely love children. But I was approached about this idea of helping people, and we do have a homelessness crisis. And so we've got to find a way for affordable housing. I still remember, when I believe I was in the 2nd grade, my mom, who is technically, at that time was technically my aunt, but she's my mom, and I always refer to her as that. I remember her being able to afford and purchase her very own home through a government program that was subsidizing the mortgage payments. And we moved, a street behind the projects. And so for me, I want to make sure that there are opportunities like that out there for everyone. And so I'm on the board for the Habitat for Greater Orlando and Osceola County, and we are simply doing the work, trying to find ways and being very creative on how we find ways for people to be able to afford houses, and exploring new ideas, making statements, making impacts. There was just a big issue over in Osceola County where they wanted to raise the fees for new development and housing. That impacts people in the community who can barely afford a house. And so that raises the cost of them being able to build their house and own their house. And so the Habitat for Humanity of Greater Orlando and Osceola County is working with the government there to see if we can find alternative ways so that these impact fees do not go up, so that, again, we can continue to help build houses that are affordable for people in our community. So again, we also do housing clinics, preparing people to get ready. People who may come in, I don't really have the resources now, or I don't have the finances, I don't have the credit scores to be able to buy a house, but we're going to educate you and we're going to prepare you to do those things. There's also programs with helping people who may own a house already, and they can't afford to have some repairs done. And so great things that the Habitat is doing. And I believe I can still serve on the board. I will certainly try to serve on the board. I don't plan on giving up on my community because nobody ever gave up on me.
Thank you. I appreciate you further clarifying that. Also, just saying how you will continue to be connected in the community, because since that is something that, based on what I read, that there's such a big thing for you, I think it would be important to continue. But thank you for clarifying.
Absolutely.
LaShawnda, is there a particular case that you could discuss, like, of course, leaving out any confidential details or anything like that? And could you tell us, like, about one and how you dealt with that?
A specific case. For me, so most of my work is been done on the defense side. And so I represent people who have gotten sued, or companies and individuals, but I see both sides of the cases. And I have to be able to do that because I know that everybody has a story and everybody needs their story to be told. And so I did have a case where it was two women who were injured, and they had some pretty severe injuries. And I knew, my client knew, everybody knew that there was never going to be enough money to bring to make these ladies whole. And so one of the things I had to do throughout this case was to convince my client and let them know, and everybody know, that for these ladies, it wasn't always about the money. We always say, oh, it's not about the money, it's about the principle. But I can understand and realize in this particular case that it was. And it was that these ladies needed to have somebody hear their story, somebody to hear that their lives were changed, their lives were shattered. And that's the reason we had the trial. And so I walked out of that trial knowing that, because these women had access to the court system. Yes, they didn't get all the money they wanted. They didn't get all the money they deserved, but they had somebody who listened to their case. It was the judge, it was the attorneys, me on the other side, just really, really listening to them and understanding what they were going through. And then they were able to tell their story to a jury. And so for me, it's really, again, stressing to people out in the community how important jury duty is, that we need people to show up, because people showed up. These ladies are able to tell their story, and I think they are going to have a better life now. Never the life that they would have had before they were injured, but they have a life because somebody showed up and somebody listened to them. And so for me, that is fulfilling. And again, this is why I believe that I'm ready, willing, and able to serve as a judge.
Thank you, LaShawnda. I want to open up the floor for audience questions. Are you all ready? Let me see. I see a question from Power Up People, but is that in regards to?
They might still be asking Stanley questions.
That's what I'm wondering. So someone, oh, maybe this is for you. So let me just ask it and you all tell me. It says, how do you feel about putting an end to LW or LWP? I don't personally know what the acronyms for that is. So Power People, if this is geared towards LaShawnda, please clarify that. And putting an end to mass incarceration. And how do you feel you would be in a position to make positive change? And do you feel you would be in a position to make positive change? Apologies. It's kind of weird to read it off the screen like this.
Do I think I would be in a position to make powerful changes in the league? I do believe so. Again, my job is to apply the facts of the law. But again, it's ensuring that the same law is applied to the same people manner. Again, it's being fair and impartial. I think it's also important that people know that when they walk into the courtroom, somebody is going to be fair, they're going to be impartial, and they're going to know some life experiences. I have life experiences that I know a lot of litigants are going to walk into a courtroom and they have those same experiences. So I do believe I can contribute that way.
Perfect. The acronyms were life with parole and life without parole. so, and I feel like your answer still applies. So, does anyone else have questions? Thank you, Power Up People. Let's see. Let me see. Ladies, do we have any more questions? I know, I just put you all on the spot, but I was just...
I'm sorry, my screen was completely like frozen. I was tapping to unmute and nothing was happening.
Oh yeah, I have a question after too. After each.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, my question is, so for a lot of new voters, this is going to be their first time coming to the polls. What is something that you feel like they should most know about you going into the polls for the first time, going in to make these type of, going in to make a decision for who to vote for?
Okay.
What do you think that they should know about you?
All right. So first of all, I just want to remind everybody, it's a little bit different for the judicial races. We are a nonpartisan race. And so for the majority of the races, we will be done on August 20th. So it's very important that everybody knows that you have to vote on or before August 20th of 2024. But for me, I am hardworking. I have 22 years of experience. And again, I will be fair and impartial. I have worked in this community. I'm the only candidate in my race who actually works in Orlando and Osceola County handling cases. I have served as I was actually elected unopposed as the first Black president of the Orange County Bar Association, which is about 4,000 judges and lawyers who have a mission to provide community service and improve the practice of law. I wasn't elected because I was Black. I was elected because they knew I would be a great leader and that I worked hard and that I had the experience to do so. I've also led a number of other organizations, including the Paul C. Perkins Bar Association, which is our local Black Bar Association, our statewide Black Bar Association, and also have been a regional director for our National Bar Association, which is the association of predominantly Black lawyers and judges. I work hard, I volunteer, a lot of community service, and I just tell people that it's quite simple. When you go to the polls on or before August 20th, just vote. Just remember Jackson for judge, and I'm in group 5, so to make it easier, just remember the Jackson 5, and I tell people ABC is easy as 1, 2, 3 to vote Jackson for judge in group 5.
Thank you, LaShawnda. I see that we're coming up on our time, but do you have time for one more question?
Yes.
I hope that, okay, so Power Up People ask, Lowell is the worst women's prison. Here.
Lowell, you know that? Okay.
it says, what do you feel can be done to close this prison down? And is that
Right.
even an option?
As a judge, I don't have any input in closing down or opening facilities. And unfortunately, with the judicial races, because you want a judge to be open-minded and you want a judge to not prejudge anything or have any preconceived notions. So I don't know that if a case might present itself for me about the closure of Lowe's facility. And so technically under the ethics rules, I'm not able to take a position or give an opinion on things like that. But again, I would look at the law, apply the facts, and determine what outcome would be. And I'm sorry for that kind of answer, but literally I'm hand tied on the things I can say as a judicial candidate.
No, I think that was the answer, the only answer that you could have given, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So okay. So to close this out, I hate to put you on the spot. So what is
Uh-oh.
what is a skill? Like what is a hobby? Like do you karaoke? Do you sing? Do you rap?
I do not sing, not rap. My nieces would tell you I'm the wobble queen.
You're welcome.
I do like to dance.
You have my vote.
Yeah, there
No.
you go. Probably some video on social media of me wobbling at a couple of different events, but that is my thing. I'm a very big sports fan. I graduated at the University of Florida. I was actually a student athlete there on the track and field team. I was a hammer thrower and a shot putter. So I'm really into football. I'm really into track and field. So I enjoy those kind of things. But my nieces would say I'm the wobble queen. That's my thing.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, LaShawnda, for joining us. As you all see, we didn't get Alicia Payton due to scheduling conflicts, but don't you worry, because before the elections, we will have more episodes that are tied to candidates that are running. We really want you all to see the faces of who's running and see that these are real people that are going for real positions that really impact us, right? So getting to know everyone and just seeing their personalities, seeing how they answer their questions, and just don't take our word for it. Do your homework. We want to bring the faces forward, but always, always, always do your homework. Does anybody, LaShawnda, do you want to close out and say anything before we do our outro?
Again, just remember Jackson for Judge, on or before October 25. ABC is 1, 2, 3, Jackson for Judge, Group 5.
There you go. Orange County and Osceola County area. Tell us what's up. Thank you so much for starting the hard conversation with us. It's time to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And just remember, love, peace, and of course, support Black businesses. I saw Junelle that was there. Shout out to y'all because they made our shirts. Just so you know, customizable shirts. Show the shirts, ladies. Junelle Boutiques, they are here in Orlando, Florida. They also have a new photo, like a magic photo booth or something of the sort. Check out their website because they are for the people, by the people, for us, by us, okay? Thank you all for joining. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.